Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of The Badass and the Buddha. And our purpose in this program is to have conversations about relevant topics that most of us will probably grapple with at some point in our life's journey. My name is Annie Fonte.
And I'm Alexis Williams.
I'm the Badass.
And I'm the Buddha.
So welcome to today's episode. We are, for the first few episodes, we're picking random topics to talk about. And then eventually we would like input from all of you about topics that you would like to have discussions, and we'll enter into this community affair that we interact with each other at least once a week. So today we are going to talk about why it's important to get out of our rut that we find ourselves in and have the courage to take ourselves off autopilot and do things in our lives that aren't so routine, such as you take the same route to work every day, you eat the same thing for lunch every day, you get up and you go through the same process every morning. You aren't willing to step outside your comfort zone. So we're going to talk about why that's important and some of the things you can do to assist you in getting more comfortable doing that. So I'm going to let Alexis start. She's done a little bit of research, and then we'll just talk away and see what happens.
Okay. Well, one word that I came up with in regards to this topic is just the word curiosity, just to start becoming curious just wherever you are at any given time. And within that, you can start unfolding and seeing where you're drawn to, because you'll see how you naturally have a sense of what you have an affinity for and what's calling you. So if you just take that moment, become curious and kind of start following that, and start opening you up to all kinds of things. What do you think, Annie?
Yeah, it's like when we're little kids, you guys all remember when you were a little kid or you're around enough young children, they'll do anything. They'll eat dirt and bugs and everything is new to them. So an example would be if you walked into a room of kindergartners and said, "Who in here is an artist?" The whole class would raise their arm and get all excited and want to get the paints out and get going on something that you assigned them to do. Walk into a room of adults and ask the same question, you got people going under the desk, you've got them running out the door, you have them hyperventilating. And so I think over time, we layer upon layer, it's part of the human condition, that we become fearful because we don't practice going outside of our comfort zone enough. And it's very valuable to do that because it builds up resilience, and there's research has been done that it helps us age more gracefully and live longer. And so I'm going to ask Alexis to share some of the things she's done to get outside of her comfort zone, because I'll tell you what, she's expert at this, much more so than I am. I want you to tell our viewers about improv.
Oh, improv. Oh my gosh, improv. I forgot about that. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Well, so I had a period of time where I was actually taking improv, and I don't know who knows me or not, but I'm definitely an introvert and definitely on the shy side. So doing improv was a huge, huge, huge stretch, and definitely getting out of my comfort zone because there is zero preparation. You cannot even begin to prepare for it. It's just all in the moment, kind of like Annie and me right now.
That's what we do once a week, improv.
So the point is, she's asking me about that for comfort zones. So what I noticed in doing improv was how alive it is to get connected in the actual moment where you're resourcing just who you are with what's going on at that time. And it's actually really, I want to almost say rejuvenating, because you're back, like Annie was suggesting, back into being more childlike in a super positive way, you know. Sure, even improv can be very adult, but you're still connecting in a way that has a lot of life in it.
Give us an example of one of your improv talks, or that when you were going through, you don't still do this, right?
No, but in improv, so there isn't so much, except for there would be characters. So if Annie and I were characters right now, say we were, what do you want to be, Annie?
I want to be a princess.
A princess, okay.
Why not?
I want to be a fairy godmother.
Oh, perfect.
So anyway, I'd say, Annie might say something. Annie, what do you want today?
I want to have someone take care of me all day long, fix my meals and make sure that I have everything I need. And I just want to sit in a comfy chair and read my book all day long.
Okay, Annie, yes, and you want to have these wonderful meals and be comfy and sit all day long. And what were you thinking? What kind of meals did you want? Did you want pizza, Mexican food? What sounds good today?
Well, I'm sure most people would think those were comfort foods. Myself, I tend to like pasta, anything with a lot of carbs. Big slab of bread with some butter on it.
Oh, wow.
That would be good for me.
Yeah. So anyway, we could go on forever, but this is kind of the idea is we were just in the moment now and we were playing back and forth. So that's an example of improv. But I was thinking myself today, I don't know what you have on your list, Annie. I kind of took a deep dive into like some stretchy stuff. And I kind of got into Brene Brown and stuff around that.
Most of you probably know who Brene Brown is. If you don't, Google her because she's quite interesting.
Yeah, so there's the living life in the moment and becoming curious and getting out of your comfort zone that way. And then there's these bigger pieces within that we long to be more than we are being in this moment in time. Something like changing a job or changing a relationship or those types of getting out of your comfort zone, which require many different skill sets and commitments. And what do you want to say about that, Annie?
Well, and I think there's common threads through all the conversations we're going to have. And that's what's the beautiful thing about life. Once we take the time to research it and think about it in detail, it really is pretty simple. It's we humans that make it complicated. And one of the common threads that you'll hear us talk about a lot in these conversations is practicing being present. And I think a lot of this deep dive into doing big things like wanting to change jobs or you should not be in a relationship that you're currently in, you really have, that's a gut call sometimes. And so we have to practice being present enough with who we are and our authenticity and what we know from the inside out, that we can ask ourselves powerful questions and we can get comfortable with that because we have this inner knowing already. And that inner knowing will help us stay out of the ditch and guide us through life. So I would say that can be uncomfortable to do. So even doing that is getting out of your comfort zone, but challenging yourself to be present enough with your feelings and emotions will help you level up in life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for me, when I have gone through some bigger things, it's embracing uncertainty, accepting and actually befriending fear itself, because that's just part of it. So
I had a moment, I had many moments yesterday. Alexis was with me part of the day yesterday. We took photos for my book cover that we're excited will hopefully be out in about 10 weeks. And I also have a horse that's older, and he's been lying down a lot, and he's acting old. And I'm so connected to my animals, and I was so concerned about him because I went down to feed my horses yesterday morning, and he was lying down. And I went over to him, and I checked on him, and he was, he didn't have a fever. He didn't look like he was in any stress. And so I came to my office and did a few things, and we went back to my house where we were doing the photo shoot. And when I got back there earlier than the rest of the folks showed up, he was lying down again. So he was all the way across the corral. So I walked across the corral and I talked to him and I massaged him and I spent some time with him. But just knowing that this animal was not in any great distress, but that he's getting older, I was off center all day. I wasn't agitated as much as sad. I had this feeling in my gut of being very emotional. And then when my support team showed up, my hair and makeup people and Alexis to help out and the photographer and whatnot, it helped me get through those moments. But what I found was important for me to do yesterday was I had to be with that emotion. I just had to allow myself to marinate in it, because attempting to distract myself from it or attempting to soothe it with some other thing like eating or drinking something would not work for me. So that was a current example of being really uncomfortable and figuring out how to manage myself through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how would you like to start structuring the rest of the conversation, Annie, in regards to getting out of the comfort zone? You have some
Let's
good
talk
notes.
about some tips that we can give our viewers about how to do this. What can you do if you're in a place, whether it's a relationship, in a job, or you're in a rut in your life? What are some of the things that we can give our listeners that they can do to get out of their rut and off of autopilot?
Yeah. So I'd say like if it were a spectrum on the everyday end of the spectrum, just regular life, is starting to really once again connect with yourself internally and really taking the time to do so and start noticing where your heartstrings are tugged because there is so much more of life to live than we usually do in, day out through routine. And then start aligning that with your actions. And so every day take a step towards. It can happen in baby steps, but it's a trajectory, and as you start moving one way, your whole life can start unfolding in a bigger, more rewarding way for you.
I think I like that very much, and I think too the baby steps is important because our brain is wired to survive. Our brain is wired to keep us out of stressful situations and in comfortable environments or situations. So we modify our behavior in order to make sure we feel comfortable and safe and there's as little stress in our life as possible. And so the other question I think is important for us to ask ourselves is what are my growth goals? How do I as a person want to evolve and grow in my life? And answering that question, you might come up with some things for you to explore to do, whether it's a little thing such as try a new recipe for dinner to skydiving. And I think another thing that's useful when you're getting ready to stretch yourself in these ways, do the research. Go watch YouTube videos about people skydiving. Go to your local skydiving place and talk to the instructors or the people that you would be jumping off cliff with and read about those kinds of things. And that helps you to feel more comfortable when you go to do this yourself because you have knowledge. And the other question you can ask yourself is, what do I have to lose if I do this? And opposite of that is, what do I have to gain? You might find out something you really love to do that you would have never known unless you allowed yourself to get out of that comfort zone and stretch yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so one of the things I learned was that what we resist persists. So if we have a fear, for instance, to do these steps forward to this larger way of living, just start naming it. And as you do, you'll see it can actually kind of dissipate the energy around that fear just by naming and taming, it's called. And then let's see what else I was going to say. Well, help me out here, Annie.
I think the other thing as you're going through this process is this helps with being present. Take notes. Get your journal out or a notebook, a piece of paper, whatever it is, where you can collect your thoughts and note what you notice you're learning about yourself as you go through these things you've never done before, because fear will raise its ugly head. It can. And if you start to become really aware and present to what you're learning about yourself and maybe even the thing you've decided to do, it might be as simple as, I'm going to try a new lipstick color. Or I've never worn bright pink before. I'm going to go get a bright pink blouse and see how I feel with that. Take note of that, because then you become more practiced at doing things that in the past you weren't comfortable with doing.
Yeah. And then another part that's kind of fun with this idea is maybe nothing is present right now for you that you feel this big urge towards. So you could take the time and actually just have a little daydream with yourself and start thinking what your ideal, whatever it would be, may be like, the ideal day, week, or where you want to live, anything like that. Because it's all in there. And then once you kind of identify it, then you can start noticing your choices throughout your days. And I'll just give an example.
Yes.
So for instance, for me, I did a little fun thing. I think it was out of The Artist's Way, the book. We can talk about that another day. It's a wonderful book, and you actually journal and you do this imagination. And I actually dreamed of where I would want to live and how it would look. And in doing that amazingly, I started, unbeknownst to me, unconsciously shaping my life to actually get there. but it was scary. And so what I want to say is that just make a daily choice to have courage over comfort for some of those bigger things that take you out of the box. Just to have that like a mantra, courage over comfort for the larger things. And then the smaller things have just fun and joyfulness to play and create.
Yes, and you can't go wrong by visualizing your desired outcome. What do you want your skydiving experience to feel like while you're doing it and afterwards? What do you want your home, your new home, to look like? What do you want your new relationship to feel like and look like and be like? Visualize that, take notes, write that down. There's an exercise I did once at a conference, and the leader of the conference said, now, I want you to take out a piece of paper and your pen. That's it. And I want you to write, just nonstop write, what your ideal partnership would be, relationship with a person. All the way from how tall they are, to the color of their hair, to the color of their eyes, to what their hands look like, to what their voice sounds like, everything you can imagine in your ideal partner. Write it all down. And then the second part of the exercise, which is the really good part of the exercise, he said, okay, now put that piece of paper away and get a brand new fresh piece of paper out, and I want you to write down who you have to be in order to attract that into your life. And that was a powerful exercise for me. So doing these kinds of visualization exercises that Alexis was talking about that she did, and she's got the cutest, most adorable cottage right on the ocean here in Southern California. It's got it decorated adorably. And that at one point in her life was a vision. And so that's how powerful that can be.
Yeah, and so what else I want to say is I'm going in a whole different direction here, but there is...
That's what Buddhas do.
But living into who you really can be, your best, biggest self, and for so many reasons, and I'll give an example, how we're role models for the rest of us. And I'll talk about my mom. So I have this 89-year-old mom, and I struggled with her forever. And amazingly, it's at these ages, she's 89 now, that she's really, really, really showing up for me as her daughter. And it's so, so wonderful. And where am I going with that? Except for the fact that we are role models. And so to remember that as we live into our wholeness, we're actually helping others to live into their wholeness.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because you show courage and you give others inspiration to allow their courage to come to the surface. We all have courage within us, so be brave. Anything else?
I think that's pretty good. It's just that life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. So to try to find that edge and play against it as much as you can.
The one thing before we finish up, I will say too, is it's as with most things, too much of a good thing can be not a good thing. Getting out of your comfort zone doesn't mean that you push yourself to burnout. It doesn't mean that I was reading an article the other day where this woman traveled 2.5 hours to work and from work. She worked 10, 12, 14-hour days, 7 days a week. She was going to every social event that she was invited to, and some she wasn't. Just going and going and going, because in her mind that was getting out of her comfort zone, when it was really starting to be devastating to her life from a health standpoint and her interaction in family and other social settings. So there's a fine line. You want to make sure you're allowing and challenging yourself to get out of your comfort zone so you're evolving as a human. And at the same time, you don't want to push yourself so far out that you're doing damage to your health or other relationships. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I guess in closing, what I would like you to do, we are going to have a lot of dialogue on social media. This video will be on Facebook. And so in the comment section of Facebook, I want you to share with Alexis and myself what you've done to get out of your comfort zone, or what you're willing to do to get out of your comfort zone, and how'd that feel, or what your plan is to do that. Because guess what? There's a bunch of people that are going to learn from you and your experience. So the more we share with one another, and the more we support one another, and the more we inspire each other to evolve to our next best self in life, the better off we're all going to be. Make sense?
That's perfect, Annie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to put my glasses on because I cannot see the unrecord button. So here I go. Thank you all. It's been a fun day, and we'll talk to you next week. And please share with us topics that you would like for us to be in conversation about. Make it a great week. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.